Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater, and I am joined by a very special guest today. This is Michael Brauer. It's great to see you.
How you doing, Mitch?
First time here at Sweetwater?
It is.
But not your first time in Fort Wayne.
No, not the first time, but that was many, many years ago when I had a band and we were, playing the Midwest. And yeah, so I think the last time I was here, I was probably, 21, 22.
Right.
It's been a while.
Right. Getting to what's sitting here on the table in front of us, you showed a picture of your recording rig, and in one of the racks, in a place of prominence, there are two sort of anonymous silver boxes there.
Yeah.
Tell us about those boxes and what we have sitting here.
I had heard about the Motown EQs, and there's always like that holy grail when you're sitting there and somebody's telling a story and you're going, oh yeah, what is that? I never heard that again. And so of course the Motown EQ came up, and I think it was soon maybe after I had gone to Hitsville with my buddies, and there was some maybe sitting in the wall and stuff, and I was like, what are these? And my buddy Harvey was like, this is the greatest EQ ever. It's got the fattest sound. And so of course, my being, one who likes to acquire gear, started looking for it, and it took me 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I landed on somebody from California, I think it was A.J. Knight, who had a couple and sold them to me. And that was around 1995. And then from that point on, I had two of them. They both sounded just about identical. I was very lucky. And the only thing I did was I think I removed the power transformer from the unit because it hummed on the inside. And I think you've also addressed that same thing. And I used it on the kick and the snare. And it was just about every song I ever mixed from that point on, all through the Coldplay and the Jameer, the Kooks, you name it. It was just the starting point at all times. It didn't dull things out. It just had a kind of a fat punch to things. And when I put it in, it was great. I took it out, I go, oh, it lacked.
Right.
So it was just part of my arsenal. And I think at one point, maybe a year and a half or something like that, maybe longer, I just wanted to get it serviced because I had them for many, many years, and generally caps start to get old. Everything about it starts to get old and it starts to change. And I hadn't really noticed anything yet, but oxidization and other things. So I took it through, because of my friend John Haber, I took it to Blackline Audio, and they gave it a little tender love and care, as Seth had said, and just sweeten it up, and it all looked good. And then John was telling his friend Peter, and of course Seth, this is a great EQ. I've got two of them, and it was like, what? Can we make them? Because nobody had ever made them.
Right.
And there's a good reason for it, because it is so complex. And the companies that actually made the caps and everything, and they've all disappeared. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about just going to a store and buying these. You're going to have to build these parts from scratch. Right. So they basically looked at it and did a very, very non-invasive, I don't know how they did it, but it was non-invasive, reverse engineering of the whole unit. And the thing, it's like a Pultec. It's not like you turn up or down one of these EQs and you're good. It's going to affect everything else around it because of the way the bandwidth and the curves are just so wide. Mm-hmm. So, changing one, it affects the other. It's just not that independent. And they said, look, we think we've really done it. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you, it'll be very easy. Just give me the MotorCity. I'll put it across a kick and a snare. I mean, after all these years of mixing, I know what it does.
Right.
And I'm sure they were kind of like, because I'm going to be blunt about it. I'm not going to go, oh, that's wonderful. It sucks. And so I put it across. I do what I always did with a kick, and I always do what I always did with a snare. And it just, it did it. It did it. It did that sound that just kind of fattens it up, unlike any other EQ I own. And I owned a whole bunch of them.
Right.
So I just looked at John. I gave him the thumbs up, and Peter and Seth, and I said, "Wow, there's a lot of people. Well, nobody's come out with one that tries to be like the Motown, but you'll see the front bass plate. It looks great. Everything looks great. Then you pick it up and it's really light, and then you put the sound through it and you go, it's like the plugins where the GUI looks beautiful, but there's nothing behind it, right? And when I picked this up, I was like, this is as heavy as my unit. I mean, it's not light. I don't know, how many pounds you think this thing is? I mean, this feels like maybe 10 pounds.
It's solid, yeah.
Under 10 pounds, I don't know. But it's not one of these where you open it up and there's nothing in it. You could pack your lunch and hide stuff in it. No, this is solid. This is a real deal.
Right.
It sonically sounds just like my units. So I can't say enough about it. I mean, if you want a piece of what I had for the Motowns for all these years, I would say you're going to get that from this unit because it's an identical copy of my Motown. I highly recommend it.
That is so cool. So if I understand correctly, they made somewhere around 40 of these, and they custom designed them to their specs to the extent that they had to use custom-made inductors. There's something like 19 inductors in there. There's custom-made transformers. There's custom-made capacitors. And so Peter from Heritage Audio had to basically figure out a way to get that stuff again, because like you said, the companies are gone, and tracking down more of the units and things is not very easy because there's 40 of them, but who knows where most of them are. They're somewhere around the world, right? They're floating
And for
around.
me, I could care less,
Right.
to be honest, because all I want to know is if I plug it in, does it sound good? You can go through, you can get the same product, you can remake them and then put it all together and then just go, it's not the same.
Right.
On top of the challenge of finding all these parts is that it sounds as good as mine, and
That's amazing.
that's quite an accomplishment.
it is quite an
that's
accomplishment.
really mind-blowing.
Right. So I'm curious, you mentioned that you pretty much dedicate one to kick drum, one to snare drum. Do you ever use them on, say, bass or guitar?
Sure,
or
you
vocals
can
or
also
things,
use it. I mean, you can use it on so many things. But I think for bass, what I really like is you can push that 800 and you get more punch out of the bass, or depending what kind of bass you have. But I only had 2 of them,
Right.
and I dedicated it to my kick and my snare.
Sure.
And I mean, there was also a point where I wasn't printing. I guess I could print them and then put them on something else, but I'm moving really fast when I'm mixing. I put it up, I don't have time to be thinking about all of that. I just want to mix.
Right.
But it has so much tone and character. It's just a great sounding, and it's not aggressive. It's not harsh. It's just whatever you push, you can push them all the way. Like the 12.5 on a snare, it's not like you're going to be sitting there going, oh my God, it's just, it's just, it brings everything up in a really musical way, incredibly musical.
Right. So one would guess then that the bandwidth on each of those bands is pretty wide. If they're all
It
interacting
has to be wide,
it's not a peak kind of a thing. It's more of a sloped kind of a thing. Do you know?
There's no bell.
Have you ever talked to anyone that used these back in the day? Do you know how they used them at Motown? Did they dedicate them in any way? Or?
Tony Bon Jovi told me at some point that what they did quite often with the bass is they'd EQ before the compressor, and then I had another one on the other side of the compressor. I guess one would have to get hold of Tony Bon Jovi and ask him because he was a Motown engineer. So he would tell you that was the trick of how you could hear the bass so beautifully on those Motown records. I think there was one before and one after, and then squash the sound and get it solid. I remember him saying that once, and so there's so many uses.
Oh, it is a phenomenal EQ, and of course, the partnership between Blackline Audio helping with the reverse engineering and kind of analyzing the unit, and then Heritage building it and coming out with these gorgeous units as well. I mean, the two companies work well together, which is a really cool thing for two separate companies to not compete, to decide they're going to work together and put out a really special product.
No, I mean, these are rocket scientists
Yeah.
on this unit. this is a challenge. And at the end of the day, I just want to plug it in and just go, oh man, these are like mine.
Right. Now you can use them on everything.
Well, yeah. Yeah, give me about 10 of them, and I'll be happy to use them all on different instruments.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Michael, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us at Sweetwater and for sharing this incredible EQ with us.
I mean, it's an honor to be here. I mean, I've known about Sweetwater since the beginning, and to finally be here and meet you and just walk around. This is an unbelievable place.
Thank you.
This is really
it is
incredible.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it is something. Well, I'm glad you're here today. You're going to be here for a couple more days. You're going to be talking to sales engineers and showing them the EQ and kind of giving them the rundown and everything. So we're very grateful to you and honored to have you here.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. Good to see you. And thank you for joining us here at Sweetwater. I'm Mitch Gallagher.